Yo, what is up guys? I'm bringing you a brand new video, and this time we're going to talk about the Zerker Awakening rework that just hit the Global Lab last night. I'm going to skip over a lot of the irrelevant stuff that happened to the class and really talk about the most impactful changes. If you guys want to read about the irrelevant stuff, you can check in the description. I'm going to link a link to the patch note in fully translated English from BD Foundry. But let's just jump right into the main skill tree. A lot of changes to the main skill tree that ultimately boil down to all the flows are gone, and now they're just put into the actual abilities themselves, so it cleaned up the page a lot. Ultimate Frenzy Destroyer has now a activation that can make it where it doesn't have that little animation at the start, so it goes off a little faster, which is pretty cool. Fear Strike got changed. Tackling Rock got changed, but they're just abilities that are going to stay locked. They're not really relevant changes. Some changes to other stuff that just ultimately don't matter. So pretty much no changes to the main skill tree that are worth mentioning. Now, going on to the Awakening, these are where the big changes come in, and a lot of people are super excited. Q buff got nerfed. Monka S, dude. Q buff is gutted. It used to knock down every single hit, and it used to shoot a lot faster, and now it shoots a lot slower, and it only knocks down every 6 seconds. The damage remains unchanged, so it's still got some pretty good damage, but utility-wise, we're shooting slower, and the KD is just not a thing unless you have Ancient Power available. Ancient Power did get buffed. It has a 6-second cooldown now instead of 15, which means that, if we want to take some high ground and we want to stake out potentially a knockdown, it means that we can now have a nice, faster charging frontal KD, which is pretty good. So, our range potential, our range knockdown potential definitely got buffed at any given time instead of when our Q buffed. So it's overall pretty decent in that regard. The other thing that got buffed about our ranged is we now have a ranged ability called Titan Blow. Wow, Titan Blow was an ability that no Zerker ever used. It was the most garbage thing ever, but now it is range damage. That means that you can shoot down on players and hit them with pretty decent range damage. So instead of our ranged potential being loaded completely into a 30-second window, it's now been spread out across the entirety of the class, which I've actually wanted for a long time, so I'm very happy about that change. I think it's amazing, and I don't even care that Q buff is nerfed, because now every 6 seconds, we can charge up a shot, shoot like that, follow up with some range damage on Titan Blow. It's kind of nice. And Titan Blow also has some CC on it. The very first hit's a stiffen, followed by nothing, followed by a KD. And the damage is pretty respectable as well. So I'm assuming this guy's like pretty much cap gear, because we're on Global Lab and everybody chooses cap gear. But he stiffens, damage, and then the final hit, I do really good amount of his HP, all from ranged. And guess what? It's back because it's on a 6-second cooldown. So it's really, really decent, and I'm pretty happy about it. So, yeah, that's the big change that happened to Zerker Q buff, and realistically, that is the biggest thing that happened to Zerker in general, is instead of being a Q buff class with our damage potential, now it's just spread out amongst the entire kit with Titan Blow and Ancient Power. So, pretty happy about that. Zerker did get a couple other nerfs. And the first nerf is Seismic. So Seismic now has less damage in PvP. According to math, it should be about 4% less, but according to how it actually feels, it feels more like 15%, but Global Lab is always kind of weird with that. So, the damage is less, somewhere between 4 and 15% less, which is okay because Seismic was a really strong ability. Even if it's 15% when it finally gets to live, I think I'm okay with that, because I would rather have an ability that's good and people don't complain about it compared to ability that's really strong and people complain about it. Everybody always says Seismic and, Seismic Keck W or whatever it's just, I don't know. I'm glad that it got nerfed, so maybe, people could be happy about that. But what did get buffed is Split Shot. So when you use Seismic Blast, you can now do Split Shot afterwards, and Split Shot's on an 8-second cooldown now. So we have a little less protection when going Seismic into Split Shot, but I guess the damage is going to be made up for. because we're going to be able to use it a lot more often, but it is unprotected, so we can get CC'd out of it. Additionally, because Titan Blow is now this ranged ability, you put on the core that makes it a frontal guard. I think that's going to be meta, and that means you lose the SA on ground lifting. So our combo is going to go unprotected, protected, and then split shot at the end, and then it'll be unprotected. Whereas before, we used to run in protected, 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 protected. Now, that's going to change. We're probably going to be doing more protected, unprotected, protected, unprotected. So more chances for us to get CC'd for pretty much the same amount of damage, but more ranged utility, so you can't really complain too much about that. The other big change that happened is, I mean, I guess I'll use big change sparingly, because Titan Step is an ability that a lot of Zerkers use, but I think it's trash, and I still think it's trash. They buffed Titan Step a bit. You used to be able to hit F and then do a crouching shot like that, which is a KD. Now you can just hit F and go directly into crouching shot, so it's a little bit faster. But the reason I hate Titan Step is because crouching shot has such a low range. If I wanted to shoot somebody way over there with my Flame Buster, I could do that. Whereas if I try to do that same thing with crouching shot, well, that guy body blocked me, but if you do the same thing with crouching shot, the range is so terrible. It is ridiculous how bad it is. It's like half the range of a normal ability. It makes like just a puff of smoke in the air, and it doesn't even KD the target. So like, I wish this guy would stand still so I could show you, but yeah, he's not going to. If you try to shoot anybody from decent range, it just makes a puff of smoke in the air and never actually reaches the ground, compared to just doing a normal Flamebuster shot and it reaching the ground. So it's always why I hated Titan Step, and it's also totally unprotected, which leaves you very susceptible to getting CC'd for some, you know, half-baked ranged KD. So not huge on that, but yeah, I guess you can use it now after you hit the F key, so cool. The other thing that they did is they changed around the core skills. So they removed the Giant Leap core, where we use that a lot for more 1v1s for the float, and they made it where Seismic now has a knockdown on it, which I don't know why you would ever do that, because usually when you're doing Seismic, you're Lava Piercing, ground lifting into Seismic, and so you're going to be doubling up on your CC, and I don't know if that is really that smart. So I feel like that's a downgrade on our core skills. I would have rather kept Giant Leap. Or maybe they could just take away blasting and give Giant Leap back or something, because nobody ever uses that one. Other changes, really, they made Devastation a 5-second less cooldown, so it's now a 10-second cooldown, which means that we can keep the uptime on our slow to pretty much 100% in 1v1s, because Devastation has a 10-second slow, and then the ability is going to be back in time to apply another one, so that's actually pretty good. And that's really the significant changes right there. That's mostly it. That's pretty much everything when it comes to what happened that's useful. My overall thoughts about the changes is that I'm happy that Q-Buff was nerfed and spread out around the class. That's a great change. I'm definitely thrilled about that. The only thing I'm not thrilled about is Zerker was a good large-scale class. It's still now going to be a good large-scale class. But the rework part of the rework that I was really looking forward to was making us a little bit more relevant in our 1v1 situations. We have a really hard time with fast classes, and we have a really hard time with having protected CCs. One of our only protected CCs that's not our core is Predatory Hunt, which is laughably easy to get grabbed out of and laughably easy to just avoid because it's such a long animation. So I was really hoping that we maybe would get something that would help us be able to use an ability that potentially could CC somebody while we were a little bit more protected. Additionally, our damage continues to stay relatively unprotected. Like, we don't have a lot of damage in our SA. You know, we have this ability right here, Slugfest, that doesn't really do very good damage. It's SA. Devastation, it's understandably low damage because it's a big AoE and a slow, but that's really it when it comes to SA damage. We've got our Wailing Beast, which is a heal SA damage, but it's on a 43-second cooldown or something like that, or 45-second cooldown. So we kind of use that one little ability, and the damage is not really super impressive, but obviously it's a heal, so who cares? But anyway, we just don't have a lot of SA damage, so I was kind of hoping that they would buff Slugfest a little bit so that we could, you know, maybe run into a ball and ground lift and do some SA rotations and, you know, be able to live in the ball a little bit while doing some damage, because we really don't have a lot of it. So that was kind of a disappointment. The other disappointment is they didn't really fix Giant Leap. Giant Leap says it's an invincible while moving skill, but the SA lingers way too long. Like, when it says invincible while moving, what it really means is invincible while pretty much in your... Whenever you're, like, already safe, that's when it becomes invincible, which is kind of just not... I don't know, it doesn't make any sense. We get grabbed out of it. The desync is really bad on the skill. You know, we'll be flying halfway across the map and rubber band back into somebody's hands. So I was really hoping that that iframe would be fixed. And if that didn't get fixed or whatever, I was really hoping for a deliberate iframe to deal with grabs in general, whether that be on, you know, a full iframe on Giant Leap, which would be fine, or just an iframe on this particular little, like, evasion skill or something would be really sick, because, I don't know, not having a deliberate iframe to deal with, like, a grab class kind of is a little... It kind of sucks against certain classes, because we use our shake off to move around, and all of this is no iframe, and then every 4 seconds it's an iframe. So it's like, I don't know. I wish we, you know, we use this for general movement, and then you can never have that iframe available. If somebody tried to grab me right now, I have my iframe, but if they, you know, run in again, now, you know, you're just sort of watching this 4-second cooldown, and you can't move because you have to wait. It's one of our primary ways that we move around. So having something that isn't a primary movement skill that we can just use as an iframe would have been nice. So I would have definitely preferred to have that on have one of those on evasion for, you know, some type of cooldown, whatever they think is balanced. So yeah, I guess the ultimate summary of Awakening here: Q buff nerfed and spread out amongst the kit, and that's pretty much the gist of it. What I would prefer to have is, I'd prefer to have a deliberate iframe. I'd prefer to have, you know, a fix to the rubber bandiness of Giant Leap, and maybe make the iframe a little bit sooner, or maybe that's our way that we deal with grabs. And I'd like to see more SA damage. Some way that we can be protected doing damage in SA, so that we can not just be a ranged class all the time, and maybe actually go in and do some decent damage while protected, because a lot of the time you'll run in and try to do seismic, and then you either just get out or try to do some, you know, utility stuff, and that's about it. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully it was informational, and if you guys want to check out all the information about the Awakening rework, you guys can check it out in the description. I'm gonna do another video a little bit later in the week about the Succession changes and talking about my thoughts, but because I don't play Succession too much, I'm going to have to spend some time on the Global Lab and test absolutely everything. But yeah, look forward to that video. If you guys enjoyed, please subscribe, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Peace.